the best thing for me is that both of us care more deeply about the planet than we do about the hip pocket. So neither of us give a shit about money. Um, so we're both totally values aligned when it comes to what actually matters.
The Power of Two, a podcast presented by Brickworks Building Products.
G'day, I'm Tim Ross, and welcome to The Power of Two, the podcast where I talk to architects who are partners in work and in life. In this episode, we'll hear from Jeremy and Tam from Melbourne's Breathe Architecture. From their Helen Garner-esque meeting at the local pool, So Melbourne, to creating a housing revolution through their groundbreaking Nightingale project, what you can't miss in this chat is their overwhelming sense of decency. It's time to meet your latest favourite people. Here's Jeremy and Tam from Breathe Architecture. Jeremy, Tamara, thank you very much for chatting to me.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks for having us, Tim.
All right, let's start by going back in time. My magical machine for a very important question. How did you meet?
Tam, I think that you should start with this one.
Yeah, the truth's good, guys.
Okay, this is the truth. This is the truth. So we met at the school gate, actually. So both of us had young kids, and from previous marriages, we're both single, and our youngest daughter.
I thought you were talking when you were at school. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Yeah, both our daughters. We have two daughters each, and two of them became good mates, and we're in a composite class together. And one day devised to go to the pools, the Brunswick Baths, and I headed down there with my kids, and Jeremy headed down there with his kids, but we didn't know each other at the time. And then when Jeremy turned up, he turned up straight from work. He was working at Fender Katsalidis at the time, I think, and then he turned up straight from work with no. It was a 36-degree day, no water for the kids, no sunscreen, no snacks, no towels.
Yeah,
the kids
and
actually had their bathers in the, and then Matty, his daughter, came came over to where we were because I had, the Italian mama with all the snacks and food and everything, and the kids just sat down and Jeremy saw me in a bathing suit, and then that was it.
Oh,
I still don't understand what I did wrong. All you need to do is take your kids to the pool, right? There's water, they'll be fine.
I like this version of events. Jeremy, is that how you saw it?
Yeah, that's basically it. I think that, Tam's daughter Talia, my daughter Maddie, I think conspired against it. I think that was the grand plan from those kids.
Oh, those damn kids messing with your lives. Now, the question is, did it all start that night?
Well, let's jump into the details.
Okay, Jezza, over to you.
No, it was actually a very long, slow burn. So,
Okay.
No, not at all. We became, unusually, we became friends for a long time. First fast friends. The kids were really close, and it wasn't until probably 18 months later that we sealed the deal, so to speak, Tim.
Okay, so you turned up with snacks and water, and the rest is history.
And sunscreen. That's it, yeah.
Sunscreen. Okay, I love that. It's a beautiful story. And it's obviously still working very well for you. What about the decision to work together? How did that come about?
I feel like in the way that I approach everything in life is kind of, leap first, look later. So I left Katsalidis and in 2000 started a practice, with a background in architecture and environmental design and no background in business. And I had no fucking idea what I was doing in terms of running a business. And Tam kind of, came with me and watched me starting this business and just helped me from the outset. And I think that, she started working with me, a couple of hours a week when I first started the practice. And now she's in there, way more than she'd like to be, I think. Is that it, Tam?
No, I'm happy to be there. It's fine. Actually, so we sort of started out together, and I was just doing, just actually not just the books, doing some other stuff as well. When from memory, I think in our first house that we did, Jeremy and I ended up laying the floor in one of the houses because we couldn't get the quote in to meet the budget. So we actually laid a floor together, which was really good. But now I'm more in. I've handed over a lot of the admin roles, and I do all the fun stuff in the business. So some strategy and stuff in the background. But we work well together, which is surprising for a lot of couples. But we actually really like each other, so it works well.
And what's your background work-wise then?
I've got a background in, so I've always owned a few businesses. So my sister and I have owned a fashion label for the last 15 years.
She started studying arts law, had kids, went into study nutrition, and she did dietetics at Freemasons Hospital. Then she went to work in the arts at the Arts Centre, then set up a fashion business with her two sisters. That stretched out to about 5 stores. And then kind of, at the back, the last 15 years of that, she's been kind of dabbling at Breed at the start and then getting more and more involved. And so now she's, the integral part of Breed that kind of holds everything together. And Tam actually runs the business.
And it's also fantastic, Jeremy, that you're there to fill in the gaps in the resume.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible, Tim. And it's only in the last years that Tam's actually been prepared to step out of the shadows.
With the business, and if there was a breakthrough moment for you, or the moment that you realised that you were doing the right thing, what was that?
So, look, I think that when we started, Tim, my background is in environmental design before I studied architecture. And when we established Breed Architecture, when you Googled Sustainable Architects Melbourne, there were 6 of us that came up as Sustainable Architects Melbourne. When you Google now, of course, everyone's a sustainable architect. So, we must be on the way to recovery. And that was to 2001. But it wasn't until 2010, and we won 2 architecture awards in that year. And one was for a cafe we did for Mark Dundon, 7 Seats. And so we'd done a little cafe for Mark and Bridget in Little Burke Street called Brother Boudin for, it was like $50,000, a 2-week fit out, and we hung 200 chairs from the ceiling, and it was a wacky, fun thing. And then we did this fit out for Mark, who's kind of the king of third wave coffee in Melbourne, and this strange kind of, eccentric, very, very intelligent, very, very quirky, kind of mad scientist. And he just cared deeply, deeply about coffee and also about sustainability. And so when we did 7 Seeds with Mark, it was, a bunch of really simple sustainability measures that were really open for everyone to see. And we won the state award for sustainability for this little cafe roastery in Carlton. And at the same time, we also won the Small Project Award for one of Tam's shop fit-outs, which was a pop-up made of 100% recycled cardboard. And the whole thing was kind of digitally printed and digitally CNC cut, and the whole thing kind of came together in 24 hours. So we just, we slotted the whole thing together. And the idea was that this shop would open, the pop-up would run for 3 months, and then at the end of it, this recycled cardboard would then go back into the cardboard compactor and go back to Busy for another use again as something else, And anyway, that particular cardboard shop, that went viral, just a little movie of that thing being made went viral. And so there were people from all around the world, from Buenos Aires, asking if we come and make a gallery out of cardboard, and then someone else from Florida asking if we come and make an ice cream shop out of cardboard. We had to keep on writing back saying, look, we don't just make shit out of cardboard. This was for a very particular reason. It was only going to be there for 3 months. we didn't want the waste associated with the retail side of it, which is why we went for this particular model. But I feel like that 2010, that's when, after kind of 10 years of doing small scale residential work, and back then, Instagram wasn't a thing. So you had to build a place. So you had to get a client, design it, get it built, photograph it, get it published, wait for someone to see it and go, that looks good. Can you please do another one for me? So our first year's gross turnover was $17,000. Year two for us was $32,000. And so it was a very, very slow burn and like really small projects. And the only place you could see them was standing on the roof of, HG station wagon looking over, a back lane in North Melbourne or in the back streets of Fitzroy or Brunswick somewhere. So very, very hard. And I feel like that those two projects, one being hospitality and one being retail, kind of shifted the dial a bit about, who we were, what we were doing, and that sustainability was kind of about big ideas and not about, rammed earth and rusted corrugated iron.
Obviously, there's a real sense with your work that there's a deep caring projects that you do and concern with the world, which brings me to the Commons. And how did that start, and what does that project mean to you?
Commons was the same idea we had for Nightingale, was basically to gather some or get some architects to change the way, that housing gets delivered, and to use architects as the momentum to actually try to change stuff that's happening in the city. But so we did have a few architects on the God, it was so long ago. So a couple of mum and dad investors and a couple of architects who got together and we bought the site. And I think we might have even bought it with, our BAS money as well.
No, that was Nightingale 1.
Oh, that was Nightingale 1. Okay. And then, so then it was just, a really slow, like pulling teeth, trying to get all our ideas through council because it was such, so removed from anything that had ever been sort of developed before. But again, that was probably another moment where the business actually really, there was a breakthrough moment as well, because once it was built, we were looked at very differently by councils, authorities, and other architects around the world as well.
I think that the thing with the Commons, the Commons was born out of frustration for us, Tim. We've been working in multi-residential, and the frustrating thing working for a big practice, working on multi-res, was to feel like you have no agency, coming for a place when you care deeply about the environment and you're being told to draw this stuff, and the last project I worked on before I started Brood was, 6 levels of a car park, that was me. I'm like, this is not where I want to see my future. And so then when we started Breed and we started working on apartment projects, I thought that we could change the narrative on that. And I thought that we could work with developers and show that you could build good, sustainable apartments, apartments for people to live in, not just apartments for investors. And the frustrating thing as an architect was that, at Breed Architecture, we realised that we just had no agency as architects. We were so far down the food chain under the developer, the development manager, the project manager, and then the real estate agent, the marketing team, and then we sat down there below all of that. So we had no agency to drive change. We were just doing what we were told to do. And when we stood up for the things that we thought were important around sustainability, we were fired from projects, or we had to resign because we just ended up being not aligned with our clients. So the Commons for us was, there were 6 of us, and we all put in money to buy this site in Brunswick. It cost us $545,000 back in the day, which was a lot of money for us. And we bought that in 2007. And the idea was that, we would deliver, triple bottom line housing. The thing is, we knew a lot about architecture and nothing about finance. And we didn't complete the Commons until 2013. It took us 6 years, and there was a global financial crisis in the middle of that. And, we nearly lost everything through that process. And we were really lucky that an impact investor came along, Small Giant, and they bought the project off us and they completed it. And then we stayed on with them to finish it. And we're also incredibly lucky that Bonnie Herring, who was a young graduate architect at that time working at Bree, just sunk her teeth so deeply into the Commons and stayed on it, all the way through from 2009, right through to 2013 when she handed it over. And she worked with a particular builder on that site and made sure that we delivered everything that we promised. And Bonnie's now a director at Bree. She's absolutely incredible. And we're so lucky to have those co-workers. But what we learned out of the Commons was that we knew a lot about architecture and fuck all about finance. And we've since rectified the gap in our knowledge, because we understand now that to deliver true change in housing, you need to be holding the purse string. And so that was the kind of that was the embryo, that was the start of Nightingale for us.
If you were to describe Nightingale to people now, how would you describe it?
Yeah, but I think the interesting thing about Nightingale is that in Australia it's seen as a housing revolution. It's a triple bottom line housing model to deliver carbon neutral housing, to deliver housing for people, to build community, and to do that at cost, so without a profit motive. And so if we can get an impact investor to come in and put in equity, the lower the returns that they will take for the project, the lower the cost of housing is. And when we finish the project, the contingency that we have left over, we give back to the residents. So it's about housing for housing's sake, for community's sake, for sustainability's sake. It's not about housing as profit. And what we intend to do with Nightingale is to try and drive systems change. So the idea is that we will inspire the rest of the market to say, we can deliver housing for people that's a bit different to what the past has been. It doesn't have to be about cars, car parking, car stackers, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a bunch of air conditioning, some white plasterboard, 1,000 downlights. It can be something different. And the idea is that we will help push or kind of break that ice to allow the market to change to what we think the market needs, or what we think particularly millennials and first home buyers need in the housing market, like something that they care about sustainability, they care deeply about affordability. The people that we're housing couldn't give a shit about having a car space. They definitely don't want to pay $40,000 for it. So it's for us here, it's about trying to instigate systems change.
Yeah, time and time again when we survey these Nightingale, the Nightingale wait list, one of their biggest priority, what do they care about the most? Sustainability comes up number one every time. It's not affordability, it's actually sustainability. So they care about our buildings being carbon neutral and fossil fuel free. We're constantly trying to tweak that and get that, make that better on each building. So it's these are the type of people we're building for.
I suppose the critics would say, it's just for, bicycle riding, woke lefties. Is there a much wider range of people who are interested?
Well, there is. But, the interesting thing is that there's also 99.9% of housing that's currently provided for car driving Liberal voters. So, there's plenty of housing for both.
Yeah.
So, currently, I guess that the people that live in Nightingale, if you look at Nightingale 1, it's probably relatively left-leaning people that are interested in sustainability and interested in community. By the time we get to Nightingale Village, where there's 6 buildings, there's a much broader demographic in there, and we've got 20% affordable housing in there. So the 20% affordable housing is placed by Housing Choices Australia or these property initiatives. We now have a priority ballot system at Nightingale Housing, which houses people that are key community contributors, whether they be nurses or paramedics. There might be carers or people with a disability. There might be First Nations people. But so we're getting a broader mix now, and we're finding that people are coming to live in Nightingale now, not just because they ride a bike or because they don't have a car, but because I guess that they actually feel like that they're going to come and be part of a community. They're going to be connected to the people that are around them, and the people that are around them are going to care about them as well as themselves. And I feel like that's been interesting because we're seeing a much broader demographic now. So we've got kind of lots of millennials.
How many people are on the waiting list? How many people would like to be living in?
Well, yeah, at the last count, there was just over 10,500 people. It's on a database, and when they were, I think that Dan at Nightingale kind of sent out a survey saying, how many of you people actually want to buy an apartment, and how many of you are just interested in what it is that we're doing. And I think that, I'm not sure about this, Tim, but I think that Dan got over 2,000 responses of people saying, well, we're ready to buy, and we want to buy now and want to be part of this. So, it's been, the issue for us, is not demand, it's supply. We can't supply the housing fast enough. That's our problem.
Because you've got to get the sites, the councils, the time, all that sort of.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, we're competing with a lot of people to get sites.
Right.
Site acquisition is just such a big issue.
But you've shared this concept. It's moving out of Melbourne, and also other people, other architects are getting on board. Was that always part of the idea?
Yeah, so look, the idea was, initially that Nightingale, it started with an email, a call to arms. I emailed probably 30 of Melbourne's best architects, and I said, here's the problem, and I feel like that we need to do something about this. And I said, let's do this together, and let's build this prototype building, and then let's scale the idea. And within, I kid you not, within 30 seconds, Andrew Maynard and Simon O'Brien from 6 Degrees had written back to me. And then James Legg from 6 Degrees followed probably 3 minutes later, and then Claire Cousins and Ant Martin and Jerry Walbridge. And so within a couple of hours, I had kind of, 6 at Melbourne, greatest, Gen X architects saying, we want to be part of this. We want to help you do this next project. And so the idea was that we would free up the IP, that we would share it with a bunch of architects, that we would do Nightingale 1 as breed architecture, and then we would go through and help other architects, learn the financial side of things. And so 6 Degrees did Nightingale 2, Austin Maynard did Nightingale 3, Claire Cousins established Nightingale 4, which is now in Nightingale Village. Kennedy Nolan then started work on Nightingale 5, which is also now in Nightingale Village. And so, the idea was that this thing would go viral. We've had architects from Boston, from Cape Town, from Vancouver, from Wellington, from Christchurch, all asking for IP, which has been sent out to them to say, look, this is how we've done it here. Tailor the financials or the tax structure to your country, and, go and make some great buildings.
Amazing. I mean, Tam, if you were to describe how people are living in the Nightingale apartment, what's the life like? What makes it better? What is it? What's the magic?
What's the magic? It's just one of these buildings. I've always lived in a home, a single fronted home or whatever. So when I moved into the apartment here, I said to Jeremy, I don't know about living in an apartment. I've always lived in a house. So maybe let's just try it for 18 months, because I feel like everyone's going to be knocking on our door. You're the architect, and this is going to be, too hectic. And I don't, I'm not sure how I'm going to go living in an apartment. I would never live in a house again after living in a building like this. This has just been the most sort of engaged and connected, and it's just a really lovely place to live, and I wouldn't live any other way now.
Are you trying to tell me there's no notes about people who didn't put the bins out or left things somewhere?
No, well, we have a rule here on the blackboard, so you're allowed to leave a note, but you have to sign it.
So yeah, there's two rules. One is it's got to be positive note.
It's got to be positive, and you got to sign it. Yeah.
You're listening to The Power of Two, and my guests are Jeremy and Tam from Breathe Architecture. If you'd like to see any of the projects discussed in this episode, just head to the gallery at brickworks.com.au. I mean, we could talk about the project forever. I mean, I think it's so interesting. I think it's so great. It's so noble, and it's so important, and it's a great thing that you've done. What I'm curious about, though, is there's this model, and then when you're looking at other work you do, so in Sydney, Arcadia, what have you learned, and what flows through into other projects that you do?
Yeah, look, I think the interesting thing for us, if I think about working on a project like Arcadia, and we did that in collaboration with DKO. So we've done a few collaborations with DKO. They've got 150 architects across, 3 different or 4 different cities now. And so they're bigger and more powerful than Breathe. But Coase, the director there, and Jesse and Michael, the head of their interiors team, are so incredibly, despite the kind of the power of that practice, they're incredibly collaborative. They work with us, and they really have this incredible open mind. And I think that our approach, and it's a shame that that we didn't have Bonnie Herring here to talk to you about this, but I guess that over the years, we've got a couple of mantras at Breathe, and one is build less, give more. So the big question for us is, do you need it at all? Why are we doing this? And should we be building anything? And if we're going to build something, let's be damn sure that it actually should be built. And then that flows through to this idea of sustainability, the sustainability of reductionism. So how do you deliver the most with the least? And Nightingale 1, I think, which was delivered by Fairleigh Batch, one of our incredible architects at Breathe, who's also now director of Breathe. And if you walk through that, what you'll see is that the precast walls are 180 millimetres thick in the centre of the building. They work as thermal mass, and there's no plasterboard on either side of those. We worked really closely with our acoustic engineers to make sure that that wall does structure, it does acoustics, and it does fire. It does everything simultaneously. It's totally imperfect. You can see the grout shoots on one side of it where that's been patched, but it's also incredibly beautiful. It's warm in winter because the hydronic panel sits against it, and it's cool in summer. We take all the plasterboard ceilings out, so we expose the plasterboard ceilings. So we expose the concrete ceilings in the apartments, and so we get this additional height. The apartments feel more voluminous. We use recycled timber flooring in a lot of our buildings, and we top nail them. We don't glue them, so at the end of the building's life, the floor can actually be reused once again. And there's no glue sitting under the floor slowly killing the occupants. But, sometimes, the floor squeaks, and we've got to talk to people about that before they move in to explain that, well, you can have a squeaky floor or you can have a poisonous gas slowly leaching out into your apartment. You pick. One of them you can fix with a nail through the top of the floor, and one of them you can fix with, perhaps, some extensive medical treatment, or maybe you can't fix it. But taking the kind of that idea of sustainability reductionism and kind of really simple, big sustainability moves, and again, like Nightingale 1 is where it is because it's close to the train, the tram, the bus, and the bike path. And if you think about, the work that we did in Arcadia with DKO in Sydney, that project is about, with WestConnex was being built there, which is a big freeway interchange. We started the entire project by door knocking the local residents, asking what it is that they wanted out of a new apartment building in their area. And consistently, when we look back at the survey results, what they said is they didn't want WestConnex. So we're like, okay, cool.
I can't do anything about that
then,
one. Yeah.
yeah, and then on the other side of Sydney Park Road was Sydney Park, but it was about to be totally cut off from them by this massively increased traffic from WestConnex. And so DKO and Breed kind of worked together about this kind of strategic approach about pushing the building to the south hard up against Sydney Park Road, and to use the building itself as a sound barrier from WestConnex, and to build it as a visual barrier against WestConnex, and then to use the north side of the building by pushing it all the way to the south, we could then open up the north side to Huntley Street and turn it into a park. So the kind of single biggest move in there was actually this big urban design move, just to push the building south, open up to the north, and then make sure that, that the building, nearly every apartment orientates on that side out towards the north, and where the living space doesn't orientate towards the north, we make sure that we shade all the north, all the west, and all the eastern glazing. So what you'll see from Arcadia is all these different window treatments based on this strange kind of geometry of a triangular site, and how the building turns to respond to both its urban context and the sun simultaneously. So you'll see window hoods, you'll see hidden brickwork, you'll see deep reveals, you'll see pop-out windows, and all of those are about how to control sun, how to deal with the noise from Sydney Park Road, how to deal with the ventilation, to make sure the ventilation of the apartments is coming from the north, not from the south side, the noisy side. And then the other big issue was about the history of the site, this kind of post-industrial history of the site. So it used to be a big brickwork there. There was a quarry there. Sydney Park was built on top of the old quarry. There were all these old brick kiln chimneys around them, still a couple standing up near St Peter's Station. But fundamentally, we designed Arcadia as this kind of homage back to the brickworks, because after the brickworks closed down, when there were thousands of people employed there, it just turned into this kind of post-industrial wasteland with nothing there. And so there's 420,000 recycled bricks just gone into Arcadia to make 153 apartments. And it's been lovingly laid by hand by about 20 bricklayers on that site. And they were incredible. They just worked day in, day out to lay all these brickworks and to make this kind of beautiful memorial to the incredible brick history that kind of sprung up in that Alexandria area. When we started the project, recycled bricks in Sydney were worth about $1.30, and by the time we finished, they were costing about $2.70 a brick. we made a whole new marketplace for recycled bricks, which was not our intent, of course. And then I think the other thing for us is that the other learnings out of the Commons and the Nightingale was about the right community size. And so 153 apartments, you can't know everyone there. That's like 250 residents. It becomes totally unmanageable, and it becomes this anonymous place. So instead, we broke the building up into 4 different buildings with 4 different entries. Each of the entries has different brick coursing, different detailing. They've all got their own. So each of the 4 buildings has their own kind of identity, same sort of family of materials, slightly different identity. And then they've each got their own courtyard or rooftop areas to gather, and then a shared rooftop area across the entire building. And then, importantly, we took all the gas out of the building. So, Breed Architecture, don't plumb gas into buildings in 2020. It's a fossil fuel. So gas is the thing of the past. We need to leave it in the 20th century, not in the 21st century. And so we did a lot of work with Defence Housing Australia to convince them to take the gas out so the building can operate 100% on renewables. And so that was a big move, the first time that Defence Housing Australia had ever done a project taking all the gas out. So we're incredibly proud of that as well. And again, helping shift the dial for the marketplace. So initially the real estate agents are going, hang on a minute, I've got to sell a building with no gas rooftop. What about the wok burner? And I'm like, what about the planet?
Yeah.
And interesting kind of conversation, right? And so that's then helped, I think, kind of shift the dial for the marketplace about the use of induction, the use of induction woks, and the fact that there is a future without a gas wok burner, and everyone will be okay.
I am going to ask you two more questions. Everyone, when they hear about partners working together, wonder, how does it work? I don't know whether I could do that. What's the best thing about working together?
I think you've got two very different answers.
Yeah, good.
To that.
That's what I'm asking.
All right. The best thing for me is that both of us care more deeply about the planet than we do about the hip pocket. So neither of us give a shit about money. So we're both totally values aligned when it comes to what actually matters. So and we've never ever had to argue about anything to do with that. So it's just like we know what each other's thinking. The worst thing about working together is that I have work-life balance, but Jeremy just has work balance. Just that there is
Because
no
he's
life.
an architect. What do you expect?
He fucking loves work. He loves going to work. He works when he's at home on the weekend. He's working. When he's at work, he's working. He loves working, and and we're all better for it because he's so committed to the cause. So. But me, I like to come home and do some cooking or crocheting or whatever in the background. But yeah, he'll just keep working if he could until he drops. He literally has two switches on off, and he's always on. And when he's off, he's just asleep. That's it.
There's no reply to that, mate, is there? You could just go, yeah, that's.
Oh look,
It's not a criticism. It's not a criticism.
I was going to say, look, working with Tam, she's incredibly thoughtful, hardworking, thorough. She's very easy to work with. She's very collaborative, and I feel like I would be a nightmare to work with, because I'm.
You're very entertaining, darling. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. I think that Tam's response was much better than I thought, Tim. So I'll take it.
Well, I think you're very thoughtful, mate. For all your hardworking ways, shown it all the way through this chat. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go back. We're going to go back to the pool where you first met and fast forward to today. Could you have imagined it?
No. Like it's yeah. Look, when I met Tam, I was so dirt poor. Like it was incredible, and and then by the time that we got Breathe Architecture going, I was doing the first job with a $60,000 renovation, and it was just, hard work, long hours, and and I just thought that, I thought that I'd do the best that I could, but I never ever thought that I would have any agency in making the city, more sustainable. And I think that, I'm really proud to say that I think that Breathe Architecture actually, with Tam and with the whole crew actually has a lot of agency. And I feel like, I'm incredibly proud of that.
I think we're very lucky to have the team that we have working with us at Breathe as well. They're all as committed and dedicated as we are to making this city a better place. So I think we can all give ourselves a pat on the back. Honestly, we work hard but we love our jobs, and we love that we're actually making a change.
Well, I thank you for that, guys, and thank you very much for your time. Really been great to chat, and most importantly, it's been incredibly inspiring. So I thank you for that.
No, thanks heaps, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. See ya.
You've been listening to The Power of Two, which is presented by Brickworks Building Products. For more on this series, you can visit brickworks.com.au, or you can check out the Brickworks YouTube channel, or go to the Apple Podcasts app. I'm Tim Ross. Thanks so much for listening.